Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gopinatha Radha Gopinatha Shri Radha. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jam Vishnupad Param Sivaraj Kachara Shlot Arashat Tastamang Grace Abhachan in the Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ke Cha Krantarachima Bhaktam Ke Cha Nityakora Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 8. Divyam sahasrabhamamoga darshana. Divyam sahasrabhamamoga darshana. Divyam sahasrabhamamoga darshana. Divyam sahasrabhamamoga darshana. Chitanilatma vichitopya yendriyaha. Chitanilatma vichitoba yendriyaha. Atapyatasma kila lokatapanam. Atapyatasma kila lokatapanam. Tapastapiyam stapatam samahita. Tapastapiyam stapatam samahita. Divyam sahasrabdamamoga darshana. Chitanilatma vichitoba yendriyaha. Atapyatasma kila lokatapanam. Tapastapiyam stapatam samahitaha. Divyam sahasrabdamamoga darshana. Chitanilatma vichitoba yendriyaha. Tapyatasma kila lokatapanam. Tapastapiyam stapatam samahitaha. Divyam, pertaining to the demigods and the higher planets. Sahasra, 1,000. abdam, years, amokha, spotless, without a tinge of impurity. Darshanaha, one who has such a vision of life. Chitta, controlled. Anila, life. Atma, mind. Vichitta, controlled over. Ubaya, both. Indriyaha, one who has such senses. Atapyata, executed penance. Sma, in the past. Akila, all. Loka, planet. Tapanam, enlightening. Tapaha, penance. Tapiyan, extremely hard penance. Tapatam, of all the executors of penances. Samahitaha, thus situated. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace of Acharya Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya. Translation. Lord Brahma underwent penances for 1,000 years by the calculations of the demigods. He heard this transcendental vibration from the sky and he accepted it as divine. Thus he controlled his mind and senses, and the penances he executed were a great lesson for the living entities. Thus he is known as the greatest of all ascetics. Purport. Lord Brahma heard the occult sound tapa, but he did not see the person who vibrated the sound, and still he accepted the instruction as beneficial for him, and therefore engaged himself in meditation for 1,000 celestial years. 1 celestial year is equal to 6 times 30 times 12 times 1,000 of our years. His acceptance of the sound was due to his pure vision of the absolute nature of the Lord. And due to his correct vision, he made no distinction between the Lord and the Lord's instruction. There is no difference between the Lord and sound vibration coming from him, even though he is not personally present. The best way of understanding is to accept such divine instruction, and Brahma, the prime spiritual master of everyone, is the living example of this process of receiving transcendental knowledge. The potency of transcendental sound is never minimized because the vibrator is apparently absent. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or any revealed scripture in the world is never to be accepted as an ordinary mundane sound without transcendental potency. One has to receive the transcendental sound from the right source, accept it as reality, and prosecute the direction without hesitation. The secret of success is to receive the sound from the right source of a bona fide spiritual master. Mundane manufactured sound has no potency, and as such seemingly transcendental sound received from an unauthorized person also has no potency. One should be qualified enough to discern such transcendental potency, and either by discriminating or by fortunate chance, if one is able to receive the transcendental sound from the bona fide spiritual master, his path of liberation is guaranteed. The disciple, however, must be ready to execute the order of the bona fide spiritual master, as Lord Brahma executed the instruction of his spiritual master, the Lord himself. Following the order of the bona fide spiritual master is the only duty of the disciple, and this completely faithful execution of the order of the bona fide spiritual master is the secret of success. Lord Brahma controlled his 2 grades of senses by means of sense perception and sense organs because he had to engage such senses in the execution of the order of the Lord. Therefore, controlling the senses means engaging them in the transcendental service of the Lord. The Lord's order descends in disciplic succession through the bona fide spiritual master, and thus execution of the order of the bona fide spiritual master is factual control of the senses. Such execution of penance in full faith and sincerity made Brahmaji so powerful that he became the creator of the universe, and because he was able to attain such power, he is called the best amongst all the tapasvis. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Karanjana Shilakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Namano Vishtam Stapitam Smena Potale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadate Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shirupam Sakashatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Kopesha Kopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhyava Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome to your Srimad Bhagavatam class. So we excuse me. So we are discussing the 9th chapter, famous chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, because it describes how the first, the supreme spiritual master in this universe, as we hear in this purport as well, the first disciple of the Lord himself, Lord Brahma, how he received the knowledge and how he started his devotional service, and how he received Srimad Bhagavatam as well in the Chatushloki then later. And so, yeah, we have a very interesting purport today as well, where first Prabhupada mentions about the length of the duration of the penances that Lord Brahma underwent after he heard the instruction by the Lord. But as we hear, by the Lord means he didn't see the Lord, he didn't see anyone, in fact, except himself. No, he is the first created living being, born from the lotus flower of Garbhuta Kashaya Vishnu, and so he couldn't see anyone. And initially he was bewildered, so he was climbing down the stem, trying to search out the origin of this lotus, and thus make sense of the world around him. And find out, what to do. But as we know, he couldn't reach. So, you mentioned earlier, Prabhupada in one purport there, he mentions the point that it's simply by one's own endeavor alone, one cannot reach the Lord. One can go a bit nearer by, as we know, different. If you just do not jnana yoga. Yoga means always in connection with the Lord, with some devotional service added. But if you just jnana alone, if you just try to, with your mind, analyze the world and figure out, okay, actually, material world is miserable, and just try to detach yourself and seek out the origin, then yes, you can get a bit nearer to the Lord, but you can't really reach Him. For that, Lord Brahma had to come up again and then get the instruction of the Lord and follow that instruction, and then get the mercy of the Lord in that way, and then he was empowered to create the whole universe as the secondary creator. But so the penances he underwent by this instruction was for quite some time, actually. Prabhupada explains here. So he did for 1,000 celestial years. And 1 celestial year is 6 times 30 times 12 times 1,000 of our years. So it did for 1,000 years back is calculation of the demigods. So that's the calculation of 1 celestial year. Not sure. I would have to spend time on thinking through if that's celestial years. Can mean the Svarga Loka. We know that time expansion from our earthly planetary system up to Svarga Loka is that one of their days is 6 months in our planetary system. So one day and night is a full year for them. So here we find, not sure if that's those celestial years or even from higher planetary systems. 6 times 30 times so month, year, 12 month. Yeah, not sure. But yeah, so definitely a very long time. So he showed us already from the start. It's that if you really want the mercy of the Lord, you shouldn't. Like I remember Guru Maharaj telling in one, well, the old Radhashtami class, that for love is, if you speak about real love, then there is no concept of time. It's not. Whereas in material life, everything we do, everything is controlled by time, but so also in our relationships, we have the expectation of, time-bound expectations of the other person. Like I treat you nicely, I do this and all this for you, so I expect within certain time, I expect some certain reciprocation, something back from yours, that you also sacrifice something from your side for my pleasure. But in real love, time doesn't exist, and so unconditional love means no expectation whatsoever, no time, nothing time bound. Like Guru Maharaj says, there's like you don't hold a time gun to Krishna. That Krishna, I did so much devotional service, I did all those austerities, so I expect some nice reciprocation, I expect some whatever we might expect. So that, like, even if it's not material, then we might expect, well, I do so nicely devotional service, so how soon are you giving me pure love of Godhead? When will I feel just ecstasy? Because our concept might be many times that we think love of Godhead means just bliss, and which is true, but with not considering that this comes from having a much more intensified devotional service, in having like this extreme desire of simply giving pleasure to Krishna, and this by engaging in devotional service, by not caring at all about ourselves, as we see especially by the gopis, of course, that for them, what to speak of time expectations, we know for them they are ready to perpetually suffer in hell if for one moment they can give relief to Krishna's headache, or from that famous pastime. Pure love, there is no time concept, and so also Lord Brahma showed that at the beginning of performing for a very long time, the only thing reciprocation he got until that point was from an unembodied voice, hearing these 2 syllables, tappa. That's all. But he had that faith. That just from that he understood that's instruction by the Lord, even though he did not see the Lord. And so he underwent penances, meditated on the Lord for 1,000 celestial years, until then the Lord appeared. So, and then the next point Prabhupada makes is also very powerful. Namely, he says that his acceptance of the sound was due to his pure vision of the absolute nature of the Lord. And due to his correct vision, he made no distinction between the Lord and the Lord's instruction. There is no difference between the Lord and sound vibration coming from him, even though he's not personally present. So we know that's a very basic and very important and powerful point of transcendental understanding, that the power of transcendental sound, that is on the absolute plane, that there's no difference between the Lord personally in his form and between him as transcendental sound. And that's that's what makes it for us also so simple to approach the Lord through respect. We know in this yoga, especially through the holy name, and also hearing and chanting Srimad Bhagavatam and all Bhagavad Gita and all the instructions given by the Lord. And so we heard that also in previous purport, was it just yesterday or the day before, about that of course we, at the same time, we shouldn't, because Lord Brahma is the most qualified being, that to receive the Lord directly. But even we know even he underwent the penances before that. But so we shouldn't. Oh yeah, here. So that was text. Yeah, it was just yesterday. That one should not, however, think himself on the level of Brahma to be initiated directly by the Lord from inside, because in the present age no one can be accepted to be as pure as Brahma. And yeah, and unless one is so qualified, so the post of Brahma to officiate in the creation of the universe is offered to the most pure living being, and unless one is so qualified, one cannot expect to be treated like Brahmaji directly. But one can have the same facility through unalloyed devotees of the Lord, through scriptural instructions as revealed in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam especially, and also through the bona fide spiritual master available to the sincere soul. So even in the previous purport already, Prabhupada made the point that yes, on the one hand we shouldn't think ourselves qualified and expect the Lord to come personally before our eyes and instruct us, but at the same time we should also know that it is not inferior to receive the knowledge through the Srimad Bhagavatam, through the disciplic succession, and taught to us by our spiritual masters, by the senior devotees in the parampara. So yeah, that's the amazing mercy of the Lord and of the acharyas of the Guru Parampara, that even though we are so unqualified to hear the Lord directly, see the Lord directly, but still He makes Himself available so easily and still with the same potency. So it is just up to us to accept that potency, take advantage of it, let it enter our heart, and take the instructions to our heart. So continue with looking through the purport and then talk more on that. And yeah, so another amazing sentence here Prabhupada says is that the potency of transcendental sound is never minimized because the vibrator is apparently absent. Because it's inconceivable, obviously, that it has the same potency. If you just open the book and read it, or hear a lecture, or if the Lord Himself would be here before our eyes and speak the same knowledge, even though the potency of transcendental sound is never minimized. And so and Prabhupada then further elaborates that thus we should accept it from the right source without hesitation. Right, so accept it as reality and prosecute the direction without hesitation. And then he mentions, of course, that in terms of mundane manufactured sound, there is no potency whatsoever, and thus, one should be able to discern what is actual transcendental sound and what is mundane sound. And another point he makes here is that even if it would be transcendental sound, but if it is received, as we know, through unauthorized source, then still it loses the potency. Actually, that's why we know Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so heavily was on, especially on Mayavad, so on anyone who is not a devotee, to hear from them Srimad Bhagavatam or any transcendental sound, because then it actually loses its potency, because what are they doing? They're actually blaspheming the Lord in one way or other. So why would then the Lord choose to be present in that sound coming from them? Because it's actually, everything is glorification of the Lord, but if they use it to blaspheme Him, then why should He be there? The Lord is a person, and He is personally present also in the transcendental sound, but it's up to Him to actually be there, or still be aloof from it if it's misused against Him. So, and and so Lord Brahma showed that to us as the head of our parampara, how to receive that transcendental sound. And the last paragraph then Srila Prabhupada spends on that, because also from the verse that Lord Brahma perfectly controlled his senses by and how? By engaging them in devotional service. And we know, as Prabhupada explains, that's the only way to actually control the senses, by engaging them in devotional service. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. That the Lord is Rishikesha, He is the actual Lord of the senses, and only by engaging in our senses in the service of Him are they naturally controlled. We know, even maturely otherwise, we know all the senses, there is sense devatas, different demigods who control them, what we are not aware of. But what are the demigods controlled by? They are controlled ultimately by the Supreme Lord Himself. So if we serve Him, then the senses will naturally be controlled, meaning not being misused in sense gratification, but being engaged in the natural constitution of giving pleasure to the senses of the Lord. And so then Srila Prabhupada concludes that thus in that way, because Lord Brahma engaged his senses fully in the service of the Lord, that's why he is the best amongst all the tapasvis. So, because we hear from Bhagavatam and other scriptures that there is many personalities were there in history who did some tapasya, but for different purposes, and thus they are not the actual tapasvis. Because real tapasya means, as Srila Prabhupada explains also in Bhagavad Gita in the purports, that it is voluntary acceptance of some bodily discomfort for the sake of spiritual advancement, spiritual realization. And what is real spiritual realization? It is realizing oneself as the eternal servant of the Lord. So only if you actually engage in devotional service, that is real tapasya. Whereas, we heard like other famous examples are like that of Hiranyakashipu or other demons who also did severe penances, but their motivation was something else, completely different. They even wanted to compete with the Lord. Whereas, like Radha Prabhu yesterday mentioned that in a few verses ago we heard the word was used avyalika, which means describing the type of penance that Lord Brahma underwent as being without any deceptive motive. Or in the translation, Prabhupada said that because of his non-deceptive penance in Bhakti Yoga, that because of that, then the Lord was pleased with him and revealed himself to him. So, in real pure devotional service means there's only one motive, only to please the Lord. And so real penance is to be executed in such a way. So, in terms of that, with the transcendental sound, that it is not different from Krishna, and that there is no less potency in reading Bhagavad Gita, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing those instructions, than from if the Lord personally would be present. That's also, that's a very amazing section of Bhagavad Gita to the purports there of the later part of Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter. And remember there also Srila Prabhupada goes on this point and very powerfully describes how it is. We should never think that it was Arjuna only who could really fully get the mercy, get the transcendental knowledge of Krishna, but reading Bhagavad Gita is just as potent, And in fact, I mentioned it previously, it is only by the mercy of devotees that we can really receive transcendental knowledge and that we can really realize it. So in that way, the further we are in disciplic succession, and if we sincerely hear and follow it submissively, then we can potentially get even more mercy. And so yeah, that's the inconceivable potency and mercy of the Guru Parampara. And so the Srila Prabhupada says we should execute it without hesitation. And in that connection, one other powerful point that I forgot to mention, he said, is that the disciple, however, must be ready to execute the order of the bona fide spiritual master as Lord Brahma executed the instruction of his spiritual master, the Lord himself. Following the order of the bona fide spiritual master is the only duty of the disciple, and this completely faithful execution of the order of the bona fide spiritual master is the secret of success. So that brings us also to the basic point that hearing, it's not just about, yes, Krishna himself is present if we hear from the bona fide source. Simply hearing, simply by the sound going into our ears, even if we're not attentive, then some purification is there. If we are attentive, then more purification is there. If we contemplate on it and everything. But still, actual real hearing means to take it to heart, to take the instructions and faithfully execute the instructions. Otherwise, it's also good, it's purifying, but it's kind of hypocrisy if we are not ready to actually follow the instructions. Then it's to some extent it's mental speculation still. If we just yes, I like reading, I like hearing, but still I want to go on doing whatever I like. I just like it as so I don't know, it's a nice activity, but a real disciple, as Srila Prabhupada explains here, is one who actually carefully hears the instructions and follows the instructions. And for that, we know it's, even though those scriptures are so nicely presented, by, first of all, the whole Bhagavatam, there's so many devotees who did explain. It's all in the form of conversations, and between great elevated devotees and who didn't speak on a complicated level, even though they are so elevated, but who always spoke from the perspective of doing good for everyone. All of them were always aware that they are simply instruments of the Lord, and they always wanted to be used as instruments of the Lord's mercy to give this knowledge, to make it available to everyone, to give it to us. Already the Bhagavatam itself, the verses, they're very clear, and many points again and again are repeated and going on more in depth, that it becomes easy to understand and to realize. And on top of that, then Srila Prabhupada gives all those amazing purports and makes it even more easily understandable to even the most fallen souls of this Kali Yuga. But still, even after that, still it is very difficult to simply by reading or hearing lectures alone to be able to fully take it in practically into our life and on a day-to-day level to live our life according to that. So that's why we need the spiritual master to still on top of that personally also instruct us and guide us, and so spiritual master are his representatives, local authorities, who can tell us, yes, in this instance, that's how you're supposed to do. That's how you actually follow those scriptures. That's how you follow the purpose of the scriptures. Because it's quite difficult to take it from theory. Even it's not just some dry theory. It's so much practical experiences are there of so many devotees and so much realized knowledge, but still to our own life it's difficult to understand. And also on top of that, maybe more importantly, is that due to our false ego we many times we would not like to actually apply it to us. We like it okay to have some knowledge and hearing and everything, but because it hurts the false ego, because it's it means to advance in spiritual life means to get free from false ego and realize our real ego as the eternal servant. So this means actually constantly our false ego doesn't need to get challenged if we want to advance in devotional service. And so this means we need to be corrected by authorities, and we need to always be ready and eager to be instructed of how to execute our devotional service, our devotional life. And and in fact, to such an extent, as we hear from today's purport as well, that we should know that our whole spiritual life depends entirely on the mercy of the spiritual master, on how we can please him. We sing that every morning, and Prabhupada also many times quoted that Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadam nagati kotopi, that by pleasing the spiritual master one can get the mercy of the Lord himself, whereas if you don't please him, then there's no standing at all in spiritual life. So we should never think ourselves independent of our spiritual master, of authorities, even though the Lord is personally present in Srimad Bhagavatam, in all the transcendental sound, and he is always eager to give himself to us through the transcendental sound. It's so amazing, the Lord, that he's in how many ways and how he is making himself available and eagerly turning ourselves to him again. It's inconceivable that even though we rejected him for so many lifetimes and in so many instances, even in one life, and still he is never giving up on us. Rather, he is presenting so many ways of how we can associate with the Lord again, and how we can become purified and realize ourselves as in our Satchidananda, eternal blissful form and relationship with the Lord. But still, we should always be aware that the Lord, even though he is present, but to really realize and take advantage of that, we need to go through Guru Parampara. We need to please our spiritual master. So I'll end on this point. If there's a comment. Okay. Grantarachima Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.